On the 22nd of September 1944, the British troops of the 5th Battalion, the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry of the 43rd Wessex Division, received orders to infiltrate the German front line near the village of Oosterhout in the Netherlands, and raced north through enemy territory to the town of Driel, where they were to make contact with the Polish Paratroopers of the Polish 1st Parachute Brigade. At the time, the Polish 1st Parachute Brigade formed part of the British 1st Airborne Division, which on the 17th of September had dropped behind enemy lines as part of Operation Market Garden, with the task of securing a bridgehead across the River Rhine at Arnhem. Unfortunately, strong German resistance meant that the 1st Airborne was unable to secure its objectives, and instead the division was forced into a small defensive pocket around the village of Oosterbeek, with supplies running dangerously short, casualties mounting, and its back against the Rhine. To further complicate matters, the Polish 1st Parachute Brigade had been dropped into the Driel area on the 21st of September, with orders to reinforce the 1st Airborne at Oosterbeek. However, the Polish Brigade had no way of crossing the Rhine to carry out this mission, and instead it found itself isolated on the southern banks of the river. As such, it was critical that the 5th Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry forced a corridor through German lines to Driel, so that supplies and reinforcements could not only be moved up to the Polish Paratroopers, but also ferried across the Rhine to the 1st Airborne. Accordingly, at 1700 on the 22nd of September 1944, the 5th Battalion departed their positions north of Nijmegen and pushed with all possible speed towards their objective. Remarkably, within 30 minutes, the lead elements of the battalion had successfully bypassed the enemy in the Elst sector and had linked up with the Polish troops at Driel. However, further back in the British column near Valberg, events took an unexpected turn. Driving along the Valberg-Elst road towards the De Hoop crossroads, Major Harry Parker, the commanding officer of A Company, was in his jeep when he saw a column of 5 tanks approaching him from the direction of Elst. Believing them to be British, the Major drove up to the tanks without concern, but it was as he pulled up alongside them that he saw black crosses on their hull and realised that they were in fact German. Immediately, the Major put his foot to the pedal, sped past the column and made his way to Driel, where he met with the battalion commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel George Taylor, and informed him that enemy armoured forces had cut the battalion's centre line. Meanwhile, back on the Valberg-Elst road, Company Sergeant Major Reginald Philp, also of A Company, was leading a pair of universal carriers to Driel when he stumbled upon the tanks. Company Sergeant Major Philp later recalled, "I saw that they were a column of tanks, and what was more important, they were all marked with black crosses. We could not stop, but charged on, hoping to get through. The first 2 tanks pulled over to the right of the road and we skidded to a standstill, with the front of the carrier touching the front of the tank. The tank commander leaned out of the turret and removed his goggles, so I immediately gave him a burst with my light machine gun and he slithered down inside the turret. At the same time, the German crew opened fire with 2 machine guns, but as one was too low and the other too high, we did not suffer any casualties and we all bailed out to the right and left of the road. As I jumped from the carrier, I remember striking my head on the 88mm gun of the tank." Through a hail of enemy gunfire, Company Sergeant Major Reginald Philp, together with the other men in the 2 carriers, bailed out from their vehicles, sought cover in the roadside ditches, before running back in the direction of Valberg to warn the other half of the 5th Battalion of the threat that lay ahead. By then, Major Harry Parker had returned to the area from Driel and was accompanied by a platoon of British infantrymen, who were equipped with Piats and mines. Knowing that the enemy tanks had to be dealt with to ensure the success of the battalion's mission, Major Parker deployed his platoon into an ambush position along the Valberg-Elst road, with his men taking up firing positions on the roadside, whilst anti-tank mines were placed along the road itself to meet the German tanks. Major Harry Parker details that, "I gave orders for complete silence. Piats were to be fired in a volley of 3 when given the order. No firing to take place until the leading tank had hit the mines. A German motorcycle combination came up the road from Elst, presumably to contact the tanks. He literally blew up on our mines. Next, we heard the tanks approaching, headed by a dispatch rider. He also blew up. The leading tank was firing very lights to light the way every 30 seconds. As the first tank reached the mines, I gave the orders to fire. There was a tremendous explosion as 6 Piat bombs hit the tank. This put him completely out of action." Moments after the first tank was knocked out, the second tank in the column struck one of the mines and was then destroyed by a second volley of Piat fire. At the same time, the 3rd, 4th and 5th tanks tried to reverse out of the ambush, with the 3rd vehicle being immobilised by a mine that had been placed behind it by one of the British soldiers. Seconds later, Private Montague Brown ran up to the tank with his Piat and finished it off, although he was knocked off his feet and lost one of his eyes as a result of the explosion. Fortunately, Private Brown survived the engagement and was later awarded the military medal for his actions. In the meantime, whilst Private Brown was dealing with the 3rd tank, the remaining 2 continued to back up, trying to escape the British fire. However, in the confusion, both drivers lost their way in the dark, and instead the 2 vehicles slipped off the road and became stuck in the ditches. Both tanks would later be dealt with by men of Major Parker's platoon, who dropped hand grenades down into their turrets. Thus, within no more than 10 minutes, 5 German tanks were taken out by a lightly equipped infantry force. Originally, it was reported that all 5 were Tiger tanks, but it has since been confirmed that of the 5, 3 were Tigers and 2 were Panthers. Nevertheless, thanks to the success of the ambush, the rest of the 5th Duke of Cornwall's light infantry were able to continue on to Driel without further disruption on the night of the 22nd of September 1944. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe so that you never miss one of my future videos.